Hello, Namaskar and Abhak to all my friends from your friend astrologer and guide Irfan, once more with you from your very own channel Astro Assurance. While we have been talking about transits, especially we have talked about the transit of Jupiter, short transit of Saturn and Rahu and Ketu, which are going to happen next month in April. However, a lot of requests have also come to me to make the videos of transits of Venus, also the transit of Mars for example, or the transit of Mercury, especially because Venus seems to be getting into Pisces next month. Somebody was discussing with me on one of my consultations and talking about Venus transit into the sign of Pisces in this month of April, and how Venus is going to have a strong bearing on Jupiter, and how through the month it is going to create wonderful opportunities of romance and of great accomplishments, material results, and Venus and Jupiter getting close, influencing each other, Brihaspati and Shukracharya affecting each other, and how the transit is going to play out through the month of April. But is Venus going to truly influence Jupiter through the month of April in the transit? And is that how you see transits? For example, if I give you 100 stones to throw at a bullet train which is moving at 300 plus kilometers or maybe miles per hour, and I tell you, when the bullet train passes, you have these 100 stones, please pick them up one after the other and throw them at the bullet train. Now, how many stones do you think you will be able to throw the moment you see the train approaching? You may not be able to pick up even one stone and throw. If at all you are able to throw even one stone, the bullet train is moving at such high speed, the stone would just ricochet off without doing hardly any damage. That's the influence of a transiting fast moving planet like a Venus or a Mercury or a Mars or a Sun, especially over a Jupiter or a Saturn or a Rahu or Ketu, because these planets Venus, Mercury, Mars and Sun are moving at such bullet train speed, they hardly have any bearing on the results of other planets, because by the time a planet comes close to the other, within the degree of influence and then crosses it, it is just a few days. So for example, if Venus is entering Pisces, it is not entering Pisces start of April, depends on which app you are using, but almost the end of April, fag end of April, whereas Jupiter is already there and has gained a lot of degrees. So when Venus enters Pisces, it doesn't start influencing Jupiter unless it comes within 8 or 9 degrees closer to Jupiter. Otherwise, it may not be able to influence Jupiter. A planet influences other planet in transit. I'm talking about a transit. Placement in your natal chart is a different thing. But in transit, a planet will influence another planet only when it comes close 7 to 8 degrees. And because Venus is a very fast moving planet, by the time it gets close to Jupiter and then crosses it, it will hardly be 8 or 9 days. That's all. Maximum you can stretch that to 10 to 12 days that the influence will be. And when Venus is approaching Jupiter for those 3-4 days, Venus has lesser degrees, it tends to have an influence on Jupiter, and when it crosses Jupiter, for example, Jupiter tends to have some influence on Venus because Jupiter is less in degrees and it is following Venus. So somebody following another can do more damage to the other person because other person faces the other side, because that person is traveling or moving that side. So keep this in mind. So when you look at transits, the faster moving transits, and then you assume they are moving into a sign, they will have a strong bearing on a slower moving planet, and that conjunction will give you certain results through the month. That is all wrong. That's not how you see transits. I have been told by a number of people that, sir, you see that person's video, you see that person's video, he is talking about Venus and Jupiter and these results and that results. One girl was telling me, sir, Venus is getting into Pisces and it's getting close to Jupiter, so I will also be getting close to my Jupiter. Now you do whatever you want in your life, but please don't assume results of transits of faster moving planets, especially over slower moving planets. And the faster moving planets also, unless they are very close to each other in degrees, they don't influence each other for a long period. So transits, especially of faster moving transits, are very fast, and they come into each other's aspects also very fast and get out of aspects. So when one planet is getting close to the other, it may be under the aspect of the third. Other third planet which is aspecting this may also be influencing the results of that. And for 7 or 8 results, how much of an influence can you make? Looking at all aspects, this planet is aspecting that planet is moving out and all that. The other is when Saturn is in Capricorn and Jupiter, for example, is in Pisces. Is Saturn truly influencing and aspecting Jupiter? Because Saturn's third aspect is important. So while you look at Saturn influencing Jupiter, because Saturn being in Capricorn and Jupiter moving into Pisces, it may be assumed that Saturn's third aspect on Jupiter is activated. But is it? Saturn is at the fag end of Capricorn and Jupiter will be just entering Pisces. The degree difference between them will be just 30 to 34 degrees. Saturn's influence on a planet is with the third aspect. Third aspect means within or close in the vicinity of 60 degrees, plus or minus 6-7 degrees here and there. So between 52 degrees to 68 degrees, when a planet comes ahead of Saturn, only then will Saturn's third aspect be activated, otherwise it does not. So assuming when Jupiter enters Pisces, attains a few degrees, Saturn is at the end of Capricorn. So Saturn is in Capricorn and Jupiter is 3 houses away in the sign of Pisces. So Saturn will be influencing Jupiter is wrong. Similarly, Venus will be entering Pisces only at the fag end of the month of April, and it will be getting closer to Jupiter only closer to almost at the end of April. And so if there is any influence which Jupiter and Venus have on each other, it will be only the last 2-3 days of April and the first 6-7 days of May, which means whichever app you are using, the degree difference is very, very important, not the sign they are placed in is not so very important. Sign place is important only when you are looking at Venus moving into Pisces and getting exalted. But is Venus really getting exalted in Pisces? Exaltation of Venus in Pisces happens at a certain degrees. Please go back and check what the shlokas say at which degree Venus gets exalted. So within 2-3 degrees here and there, exaltation results come. The entire month that Venus remains in Pisces, or through the month that Venus remains in Pisces, the exaltation results don't come to bear. So this is what I have done. I have made a transit roadmap with pictorials which I am going to show you and explain to you how transits should be seen, how they should be looked at in virtue of aspects on each other, how close they get to each other, and where they will actually be influencing and where they will not be influencing. And so why looking at transits and assuming the entire month will give us certain results is wrong. This is only misleading, and one should be very careful when we watch all these transit videos, because we may end up assuming certain results will be coming to us when none of them will be coming, and only a few days those results will be activated. So let's jump into understanding through a pictorial graph how the transits through the month of April and mid into the month of May will play out for the transits which are happening, especially of the faster moving planets. You will see that Mars, Saturn, Moon and Venus, all of them are seen in the sign of Capricorn, and this is, I'm talking about 28th of March, which is today, where Mars is at 22 degrees Capricorn, Venus is at 27 degrees of Capricorn, Saturn is at 27.3 and Jupiter is at 27 degrees of Aquarius, and Mercury is at 7 degrees Pisces, which means that Mars, Venus and Saturn, being closer to each other in degrees, are able to influence each other. However, Jupiter at 26 degrees in the sign of Aquarius is way past getting influenced. So only Mars, Venus and Saturn will be affecting each other because they are very close to each other in degrees end of March. But I have made the difference of 3 days each to see how the transits play out. So by the 31st of March, you will see, based what app you use or what website you refer to, Venus will be moving into Aquarius, which means Venus will be just moving into Aquarius 31st of March. But Mars and Saturn will be continuing to influence each other because Mars and Saturn are very close to each other in degrees. However, Mars is catching up on speed and will be overtaking Saturn and will be leaving Saturn way behind, reducing the influence of Saturn on itself. Now, some people will read the transit of Venus into Aquarius 31st of March as Venus has already started to influence Jupiter. But Venus is at 0.1 degree in Aquarius and Jupiter is at 26.5 degrees Aquarius. How can a planet which is almost 26 degrees away from the other influence the other? At max, Venus will be influencing the sign of Aquarius, whichever house Aquarius sign is in your house, in your horoscope, and Jupiter will also be influencing the Aquarius sign, whichever house it is in your horoscope. However, they are not influencing each other. So if anybody is reading this as a conjunction because of which Venus and Jupiter starting to influence each other from 31st March onwards, or give and take 2-3 days here or there based on what app or website you use, then you are mistaken. Because even when you look at on the 3rd of April, the transits of these fast moving planets, especially Mars or Venus or even Mercury, you will see that on the 3rd of April, Mars has already caught up on speed, and Mars is at 26 degrees of Capricorn and Saturn is at 28 degrees. So the degree difference between Mars and Saturn is just 2 degrees. And Venus is starting to catch up on Jupiter in the sign of Aquarius. However, yet the degree difference is almost 24 degrees. So while Venus has influenced the Aquarius sign, Jupiter is influencing the Aquarius sign. They are not influencing each other. They are just influencing the house results, whichever house they are transiting over in your horoscope. So if you are referring to any videos that you see online which are saying that beginning of April or through the month of April Venus is influencing Jupiter and vice versa, this is wrong. And if you look at Mercury, Mercury is at 19 degrees Pisces, which is way beyond influence of any of the planets. Now I've seen some websites also refer to Mercury being under the aspect of Saturn, because Saturn is in Capricorn, Mercury is in Pisces, that means 3 houses away. However, Saturn is at 28 degrees and Mercury is at 19 degrees. The degree difference between them is just 50 degrees. Mercury will have to catch up on some speed and come within the 60 degrees plus or minus 5 degrees on either side for it to come under the third aspect of Saturn. And Venus and Jupiter are still not influencing each other but only influencing the sign of Aquarius. And your Bhav Chalit becomes very important, because based on Bhav Chalit, Venus and Jupiter may be in different houses for you in the Bhav Chalit chart. So when you look at transits, you should also bear in mind, using the Bhav Chalit chart, which houses they will be entering into. Now on the 6th of April, Mars and Saturn are still remaining in Capricorn. However, Mars has now caught up on speed and left Saturn behind. And while Venus is still getting close to Jupiter, even by the 6th of April, that Venus has not started to influence Jupiter yet. But now Mercury in Pisces is under the third aspect of Saturn. So keep that in mind. However, not for many days, maximum 5 to 6 days that Mercury will be under the third aspect of Saturn. By 9th of April, Mars has moved beyond Capricorn and moved into Aquarius. So now a lot of online media or online videos will tell you that Mars, Venus, Jupiter, all three are in Aquarius sign and so they are influencing each other. No, they are not. Mars is at 1 degree and Venus is at 9 degrees. Mars is pretty close to Venus. So there is still some influence of Mars on Venus over the last 10 days. However, Venus is catching up on speed and getting closer to Jupiter. So in the first 15 days of April, Mars will continue to influence Venus irrespective of what sign they move in, because of the closeness in degrees to each other. And while now Mercury seems to have entered Aries at 2 degrees in Aries, but Saturn is at 28.4 degrees in Capricorn. So on paper, Mercury has moved 4 signs or 4 houses away from Saturn. However, because of the degree difference between Saturn and Mercury being just 63 degrees, Saturn is still aspecting Mercury, but only for a few more days. By the time you hit 12th of April, Mercury would have been way beyond Saturn's aspect at 8 degrees in Aries. So Saturn is not aspecting or influencing Mercury anymore. However, Mars is still influencing Venus, but now the degree difference between them is 10. So now, from now onwards, the influence of Mars on Venus will be reduced. And Venus and Jupiter are still not influencing each other because the degree difference between the two is 16 degrees. So Venus and Jupiter are still influencing the Aquarius sign or the house that they are in your respective horoscope, specifically looking at the Bhav Chalit chart, which houses Venus will be in at 13 degrees at Aquarius and which house Jupiter will be in the 29th degree of Aquarius. But by the time you reach 15th of April, you will see that Saturn is almost at the fag end of Capricorn sign and Mars is at 6 degrees in Aquarius. So Saturn still has influence on Mars because the degree difference is just about 7 degrees. However, Mars has lost its grip on Venus and Venus is still not able to influence Jupiter. Though Jupiter seems to have entered Pisces, it is just entered Pisces by the 15th April, give or take few days depending on the app or website that you are referring to. So Jupiter would be moving into Pisces by the 15th of April and not before, and Venus will still remain in Aquarius even by 15th of April. So because Jupiter and Venus both will be seen in the sign of Pisces fag end of the month, some videos, some websites are taking Venus and Jupiter being in the sign of Pisces almost as if they are together through the month of April, which is not true. Even by the 18th of April, Mars is way beyond Saturn. Saturn's influence on Mars is completely gone. Same thing, Mars is not able to influence Venus anymore, and neither Venus is influencing Jupiter because the degree difference between Venus and Jupiter is still high and they are in different signs. Venus is at 19 degrees of Aquarius even on the 18th of April and Jupiter is at 1.3 degrees of Pisces. Even when you reach 21st of April, Venus is at 23 degrees in Aquarius and Jupiter is at 1.4 degrees of Pisces. So about 8 degrees of difference between Venus and Jupiter, though they are in different signs, yet they are getting closer. And by the time 24th of April arrives, the last week of April, only then do you see Venus and Jupiter being able to influence each other or start influencing each other. Though on paper Jupiter will be in Pisces whereas Venus will be still in Aquarius. However, the degree difference between the two is just 6 degrees. So you can say there is some influence of Venus on Jupiter. That is only the last week of April. By the 27th of April, Venus being at 29 degrees of Aquarius and Jupiter at 3.1 degrees of Pisces. This is where now they are starting to affect each other very, very strongly. Especially Venus will be affecting Jupiter more strongly. So material results of Venus and the expansive results of Jupiter in its own sign will be felt by people who especially have a conjunction of Venus and Jupiter in their natal horoscopes. And only by the 30th of April will you see that Venus and Jupiter are very close to each other and Venus has just entered Pisces. So people who are taking Venus's influence on Jupiter as being in Pisces through the month of April are wrong. Venus enters Pisces only fag end of April, not at the start of April, whereas Jupiter will be in the sign of Pisces midway through April. So the strong effect of Venus and Jupiter on each other will start more or less after the 25th of April and continue into the first week of May, and Mars and Venus being seen in the Aquarius sign. By the 3rd of May, Saturn would have also entered Aquarius, and some websites or videos will tell you that Saturn has entered Aquarius. So now Saturn and Mars are together Aquarius, they are influencing each other. That is not true. Mars is at 19 degrees of Aquarius and Saturn is at 0.2 degrees of Aquarius. So there is no influence of Mars or Saturn on each other. They actually influence Aquarius sign. So they are influencing the Aquarius sign basis which house it is in your natal horoscope. However, Jupiter and Venus are surely influencing each other strongly. Venus is nothing but Shukracharya or Shukra and Jupiter is Guru. So from 25th of April till the 6th of May, you will find Jupiter and Venus in close quarters or close to each other in degrees, and they are influencing each other strongest. However, Saturn is at 0.3 degrees. This is not captured right. This is not Capricorn, this is Aquarius, and so is this Aquarius. So my apologies for this mistake and oversight. Saturn is at 0.3 degrees Aquarius, which you can see here. It's moved into Aquarius. Saturn at 0.4 degrees in Aquarius and not Capricorn as wrongly captured here. However, by 9th of April you will see that Venus has moved almost 8 degrees beyond Jupiter, and so the influence of Venus and Jupiter on each other ceases. So roughly from 25th of April to 9th of May, those 14 days the influence of Jupiter and Venus will be with each other. Though Venus will remain in the sign of Pisces almost till the fag end of May, and Jupiter will acquire a few more degrees. However, yet the influence on each other will cease from 10th of May onwards. So friends, when you look at transit, as I've explained to you, that Venus will be moving into Pisces only roughly at the end of April, while it will remain in Aquarius almost through the month of April, and Jupiter would have acquired a few degrees moving into Pisces. So their conjunction should not be read from the first week of April onwards, because Venus is not moving into Pisces from the first week of April. It is moving into Pisces only end of April. So roughly between 24th of April and 10th of May is when their closest influence on each other is happening in the sign of Pisces. However, the influences on the sign of Aquarius and Pisces will be felt. The houses they move into, when they move into Aquarius or into Pisces, will be felt depending on which house Aquarius or Pisces sign are in your respective horoscopes. And the Bhavachalit will be very important, because though planets may be seen in the same sign, but sometimes because of an ascendant degree, that sign may be divided into two different houses, and so two planets may be seen in the same sign, but they may be influencing different houses. Only when they come very close to each other, within 7 degrees of each other, do they truly influence each other. And once the degree difference goes beyond 7 degrees, the influence on each other reduces, and post 9 degrees or 10 degrees there is hardly any influence on each other. There is very weak influence on each other. So if somebody is saying that Venus and Jupiter will be together in Pisces, so this result will come, that result will come, this great thing will come, that danger will become, because Venus and Jupiter are opposite ends of the spectrum. They are the leaders of two different camps, and so be a little careful not to look at transits this way. Transits move very, very fast. There are aspects on each other also. For example, Mars may be aspecting some signs and some planets while they are moving fast, and faster moving planets, when they move over slower moving planets, don't give too much room to the slower moving planet to have a strong influence on them. So faster moving planets like Venus, Mercury, Mars or Sun, especially in transit, move too fast for the slowing moving planets, especially Saturn or Jupiter, to have a strong influence on them, bearing a few days in the transit. So when you look at transit, please do look at the degree difference, do look at which house that sign rules, do look at in your Bhavachalit, are they influencing different houses, and do understand that while planets seem to be in the same sign, but one planet may be entering the sign almost fag end of the month, and it is wrong to look at the transit of the planet which is moving into a sign at the end of the month as if it's been there through the month. So friends, this is basics of transits. You need to look at transits accordingly. So when you're watching the videos of any astrologer who's talking about transits of Venus or Mars or Mercury for that matter, keep in mind these few things. These are fundamental, these are basics. Without looking at these, you will be reading transits wrong. I've also seen people making videos on transit of moon. Moon's transit is for 2 to 3 days. What is the point of looking at a video of transit of moon for 2 or 3 days into a sign and gone? So learn how to see transits. Do not take too much bearing on the transits of faster moving planets. They have to be seen with various factors, including aspect on each other, which one is going retrograde, which sign they are moving, the degree difference, rather than jumping to conclusions too quickly. So friends, like this video, share this video, and if you're looking for a personal consultation from me, please reach out to me with the links given below. Until some other time with some other video, this is your friend astrologer and guide Irfan signing off. Ciao.